Hi, welcome on this video, which is part two on my series on the relational approach to dog training. And again, just having a conversation and moving through some of these, dynamics as it relates to the process itself. On this video, that's exactly the thing I want to focus in on is identifying the training process. And again, when people I talk about certain things that will override, certain, problems. It's understanding that moving beyond just appearances or devices or this learning-based narrative that's the very thing. Is understand that you're more than just that. It's relational. So how it packages up for a dog through how they connect with the person at the individual level, the person themselves. That way, is it really can negate or offset issues that where other people will experience them based on the person already thinking properly to begin with. And this is again one of the twists, but again it speaks about getting in this issue about the process is looking at training differently, understanding that, and I mentioned this on past videos. There's no real line in the sand or distinction between once you really understand, dogs as the relational animals that they really are, and how that connection immediately, as soon as a dog enters your life, how right away that process is already happening. However you want to define the process, it's about relationship. Ultimately, when you, and this is the thing to understand, when you begin to experience behavior problems, that's because of the fact of the relationship itself. Things are already starting to go sideways, and so when you enter into a seeking professional help, and you define that process itself as something other than what's defined through the relationship. It's a relational changing process. It's about the relationship, about understanding these control issues and the motives of the dog. Once you enter into a formal process to try to, diminish unwanted behavior, try to deal with these issues, and you approach it other than what how nature defines the relationship that way, this is where problems happen right away. I want people to really understand that the issue about an approach or a really what training is, it comes down to a type of intervention, because ultimately that's what needs to happen, and shift the focus to bring the owner into right relationship. Okay, it's really about what the methodology it does, the specifics of that does to create change. But again, getting into this issue about defining a process, it's really stepping back and saying, well, when you're experiencing behavior problems, you have to look at the fact of that started to happen right from things start going sideways over a period of time, because that's how it plays out. And then when you get to a certain point where the owner feels a need for professional help, it's really making sure that you understand that it's not a learning-based exercise. I mean, when you enter into that process as such, you can expect there to be problems. Okay, because again, it's about understanding, fixing the core of the relationship, and so it's no different than if you apply the example to say parenting, and over a period of time a child begins to become very selfish and self-focused and self-centered, all these different things, and you look at at a certain kind of intersect point, even in that, saying, okay, how do you change the nature of the relationship through the parenting process? Is it really a learning exercise? Do you incentivize that process? And how are you looking at beyond just the appearance of things? It's relational, and so the same holds true for with dogs. Dogs are relational animals. is that when you enter, and this is the problem, again, I talk about this position issue with the interpretive script or the narrative of this learning based narrative. When you engage at that level of just defining change through at the position level, understand it's relational. So therefore, getting this issue about starting to bring that owner into right relationship through how it packages up relationally, and you start to approach training as or define change merely at the response level with incentivizing the dog. How that aligns with the state of mind of the dog doesn't oftentimes it's disconnected. Okay, the dog simply will continue to hold control as they go through the motions, and this picture can look fantastic. Again, I mentioned this, but it's disconnected, totally disconnected from how a dog's decision-making process is governed. Okay, so and that becomes a problem. But again, paralleling this, going back into the human example, it's the same thing. I could incentivize a very selfish child to do certain things and get them to go certain places, do whatever, but that's not representative of anything meaningful happening to fix the relationship. Okay, this is where things kind of bottom out or the wheels come off the train. But people, again, buying into that type of narrative is a problem because, again, applying, and again, I talk about this issue about the dog's motives being tested at all points. What's happening here in the mainstream dog training world is that type of test isn't happening. Okay, you're not seeing the full picture. You're seeing kind of just a very piecemeal type of picture that leads people into believing certain things, and therefore when they leave the training environment, they feel a certain way about it. But then when you go into the real world setting, then you're only to discover, say, wow, I'm still dealing with these problematic issues. Why is this happening? Trying to line that up, trying to process that to say, well, in that picture, what was painted, for me, it was painted up a certain way and it looked great, but moving beyond that, what is this thing about the positions? Okay, I'm gonna, again, as I work through these videos, I'm gonna talk about what is the end game, what is the real standard here, how do you apply that standard, how do you figure out and connect that to a dog's decision-making process via unwanted behavior. Okay, this is the thing about this. You have to be able to connect these dots properly, but then default back to the actual issue, the all-encompassing thing. When I talk about what is training itself, what does that represent? Out of the starting gate. Again, taking this right back to the moment you connect with your dog, that's when training happens. However you want to define that. That's when it matters about how you interact, because the thing is, you're more than a device. Okay, you're more than a leash, you're more than some treats. It's about the person. Okay, how that's defined, it's about the relationship. I want people to understand the depth of that. So when I talk about this issue, which can be challenging for people to understand, when I say, well, I can use treats and I can enter into a type of interaction with the dog and do certain things, but it's more than just that. Okay, it's about how I think. It's about my personality and my thinking processes, but then how I interact with the dog. It's all those things that come together. But then again, taking that into when owners are now struggling with behavior issues, the process itself, this is an important point, has to take shape in such a way that it's going to create the change, affect the type of change that's going to, establish itself relationally to really change the perceptions of the dog. Okay, that's important. So I talk about the methodology, which I'm going to be really focusing in on some future videos. The specific of the methodology is more critical than just the idea of something, of leadership. Okay, because it's meant to change everything, how people think, perceptions of the dog, but how that lines up. So anyway, this is again, this is part 2, talking about the process. I want to encourage people to step back from it, to start to really look at what I'm saying, to come to an understanding of what the process even really is. as a starting gate, because again, you have to understand when you're experiencing behavior problems, you're dealing with motives that have already gone sideways. Okay, you're already dealing with control issues, and then when you get into this issue about approaching training as a learning-based exercise, people ask, well, how is it that dogs can go through the motions? It can look fantastic, but still hold control, and it's disconnected. Okay, it's not representative of change at all, because the person hasn't changed. Okay, that's key. It's about the relationship. So anyway, thanks for watching. Again, I'll be doing the part 3 coming up. Have a great day.